Welcome to Citizens Climate University, a weekly webinar program of Citizens Climate Lobby that provides CCL superstars, supporters with access to in-depth training opportunities on topics relating to climate change and effective climate policy. I'm your host and speaker tonight, Todd Elvins, and tonight's topic is bringing policy support from trusted messengers to Congress. One of the most critical elements of building political will for strong climate legislation is spotlighting support from influential industry, business, civic, elected, and faith leaders in your local district. And this training will help you focus your Grasstops engagements to identify the community leaders who have the greatest influence on their members of Congress. These community leaders are called trusted messengers. All right, we have 3 learning goals for tonight. The first is to review the Grasstops lever of political will. You're probably familiar with that. Why community leaders have extra clout with their members of Congress. And then we're going to define a special type of community leader called a trusted messenger. The second learning goal is to learn how to identify local community leaders that are trusted by their members of Congress. And our third goal is to go over the steps of working with a trusted messenger to customize, print, and sign our editable template letter for delivery in a June lobby meeting. For our agenda this evening, we're going to start by going over why we use Grasstops engagements and connections to influence our members of Congress. Then we'll learn about an important type of community leader called a trusted messenger that has extra influence on members of Congress. Then we'll go over a few types of research you can do to figure out which people and organizations in your locale are trusted messengers. Then we'll go into more detail on how to learn about your member of Congress and how this learning can uncover trusted messengers in your district. And finally, we'll talk about working with a trusted messenger to customize our editable template letter of policy support. So please hold on to your questions until the end or pop them into the chat for me to answer during Q&A at the end. All right, let's do a quick refresher on CCL's Grasstops engagement lever of political will. If you've looked at our Grasstops basics training, this is going to look familiar just for the next 1 or 2 slides. All right, when we do grassroots outreach, which we're doing a lot of this month because it's April Earth Month, grassroots outreach is engaging everyday constituents. But when we do Grasstops outreach, we're engaging people and organizations in the community that represent the views of many constituents, and so are especially influential on their members of Congress. Business owners, local elected officials, large local employers, faith leaders, instructors are some of the examples of community leaders who have an outside influence. Over the past decade, CCL volunteers like you have secured thousands of endorsements from community leaders for Carbon Fee and Dividend and the Energy Innovation Act. These endorsements have helped to show important policy support in districts and states. And these endorsements have a cascading effect because they help to push members of Congress up the carbon pricing policy support ladder, which in turn demonstrates support to other members of Congress and helps build political will in Congress in general. Now let's look more carefully at a special kind of community leader called a trusted messenger. To start to understand this concept, you might think about who among the people you know have views and opinions that have the greatest impact on your own views and opinions. These people are your trusted messengers. Especially respected by a member of Congress, a trusted messenger is a community leader who is a key figure in the member of Congress's jurisdiction, whose views and opinions are trusted by the member of Congress. Trusted messengers often have a personal connection to the member of Congress in some way. For example, they might belong to the same political party, or live in the same city, or have similar career backgrounds, or something else. Some trusted messengers may be friends with their member of Congress and have history together. Perhaps they went to college together, or they serve on the same boards, or they volunteer with the same service organization, or belong to the same faith congregation. For our purposes, we engage trusted messengers so that they can convey to their member of Congress, one, the current climate impacts in the district, two, the risk to the jurisdiction from future climate impacts, and three, policies the trusted messenger advocates to reduce the use of fossil fuels. Jumping ahead, I'm just going to recommend to you real quick here before the next slide that you put local elected officials at the top of your list of trusted messengers for a couple of reasons, because they often know their members of Congress personally. They move in the same circles with their member of Congress, definitely. They may have worked together, and because your local elected officials are relatively easy for you to meet with, because you're going to need to vote for them to keep their job in the future. All right, let's hear from CCL Vice President of Government Affairs, Ben Pendergrass, on the things that influence a member of Congress's policy position. This video is about 4 minutes long, and we'll discuss about 3 of the key points when we get to the end.
Congressman Blumenthal is the founder and co-chairman of the Congressional Bike Caucus, and has been very involved with the Rails to Trails program and a lot of different bills around bicycling. And so one thing that he always wears is a bicycle pin on his lapel. And anything having to do with cycling is near and dear to his heart. And so there are also these instances where if you do a little research on members, you might find things that they have a personal passion around, and that can really inform what the policies and positions they take on issues. Members do not exist in a vacuum. Their friends and family do have an influence on them. And this is something important to remember. I don't think you should ever try to reach out to the friends and family of members, but if you do have connections with them, they can be influential. One story, several years ago, Senator Mary Landrieu from Louisiana became a champion of shutting down horse slaughter in the United States. And the reason she became a champion of that was quite simply her daughter was an equestrian and saw a documentary on horse slaughter in the United States and went to her mother and said, "Mommy, I want you to stop them from killing the horses." And there was no great in-depth policy look at it. It was, she had this request from her daughter and that spurred her to make an effort to end that practice. A great example when I was working on the Hill, watching a Grasstops leader influence my former boss was when a archbishop from the Philippines came to talk to him about a historical bell that had been taken from the Philippines during right after the Spanish-American War and the occupation of the Philippines, and the bill had been transported to the United States and was in a museum over here. And my boss, being very Catholic, basically directed us right off the bat to do whatever we could to be helpful to the Archbishop. And what really mattered was that particular messenger, being a high-ranking official in the Catholic Church, mattered a whole lot to my boss, probably more so than the issue itself. And so I think it's a good example that sometimes the messengers matter, and when it's coming from somebody, a trusted or respected source, that can matter a lot to a member, whether or not it's a former businessman and businessmen coming to talk to them, or somebody he respects in a religious order, or somebody from an organization that he was a member of or has worked with in the past. That messenger can be very important to change minds on an issue. I think a good example of using a story and an example of how it connects to the district to getting a member on board with something is many years ago, I was working on issues revolving around trails and the lack of trail maintenance on national forest land. And this was a major issue where trails were becoming impassable for recreational users. And to demonstrate this, we had a member of a constituent of a Wyoming congresswoman took the legislative director of that office out on a trail ride to actually show him the condition the trails were in and how bad they were, what bad a shape they were in, and the trees were down. And from that actual demonstration of how it was impacting the district and the state, that turned into a bill that eventually passed and became one of the major pieces of trail legislation of the last 15 years. Well, it's great if you can take your member out or some of their staff and show them the impacts of climate change in the district. You can also bring that to the office in the form of stories. Really paint a picture for the member or staff, what you're seeing and how this is impacting every day, and that can really be brought to life with a good story.
So that's a terrific video. And the 4 points that I take away from there are the Rails to Trails story, because the member of Congress is super interested in bicycles. Relationships matter. And so we've been talking about trusted messengers may have an existing relationship. The messenger matters. In the third example, it wasn't even the trusted messenger. It was sort of a delegate of the trusted messenger coming from a trusted organization. And then Ben talked about storytelling and how important that is. And again, these slides are available. And so if you want to watch that video again or share that video, you'll be able to share that video with other people. All right, let's be interactive for just a minute. And let's turn it around and ask you, in the chat, let's hear, name someone in your city who likely knows their member of Congress. So now let's get specific about an action to take. The CCL Government Affairs team, Ben and Jen, recommend that all CCL chapters, work to secure at least one letter from a trusted messenger to their member of Congress and deliver the letter in a lobby meeting. In this example, the June lobby meeting, which is only 2 months away. Your liaison and other chapter members likely know local elected officials, and these community leaders are often trusted messengers to their members of Congress. All right, let's go over the 4 steps on this slide in detail one by one. But before I start, I wanted to be sure to mention here that it's a good idea to use a shared spreadsheet, such as a Google spreadsheet, for the tasks you're working on. Learning about the member of Congress and their background and who they listen to in the district, and notes from meetings that you've had with trusted messengers. With a shared spreadsheet, you can have multiple volunteers all working on the same project at the same time. Everyone can see all the latest information. There's no confusion caused by sending dated spreadsheets as email attachments. Everyone can log the results of their detective work in a place where everyone can see it. And it prevents a duplication of effort. And your Google Sheets are free to use, and they're super easy. So don't be worried about the learning curve, because you can learn to use them in about a minute. And if you want some help, look on YouTube, and there's lots of videos on how to get started with Google Spreadsheets. All right, let's start by discussing how to identify a local trusted messenger, a community leader in the district whose views are respected by their member of Congress. I'll mention here that one side effect of narrowing your Grasstops engagement to just the most influential community leaders, trusted messengers, is that you're spending your limited time on the highest value prospects. All right, here are some ideas of how to start your research project into trusted messengers. Liaisons know their members of Congress well and have often worked with them for years. Ask your local liaison who their member of Congress listens to in the district. It might be a business owner, a CEO, faith leaders, trade organization, or large local employer. These are trusted messengers. Next, learn as much as possible about your member of Congress. The more you know, the better your chances of discovering a trusted messenger you can easily engage. We'll go into that in more detail on this detective work on the next slide. And finally, ask your fellow volunteers who they know who has a personal connection to their member of Congress. It might be someone who went to the same college or attends the same faith organization, someone who worked with the member in a career before Congress, someone who sits on the same board of directors or belongs to the same service organization. It could be someone who lives in the same town or is even neighbors with the member of Congress. All right, we know that your time is limited and precious, so I'm going to give you some tips for places where you're sure to find some good information. To learn all about a member of Congress, look in these places. There's a biography of every member of Congress on Community, and I'm going to put that link in the chat. This will give you a lot of basic information and provides a good starting point. Next, check out the Member of Congress's campaign website. These websites are only updated during campaign season, but they contain a wealth of information. Look for people on the campaign website who endorsed the candidate in the campaign and people who appear in the campaign photos alongside the candidate. These may be trusted messengers. The campaign website may also describe top industries, economic drivers, and job creators in the district. And the people who manage these organizations and work in these industries may be trusted messengers. And finally, review your member of Congress's congressional website. Those are at house.gov and senate.gov. Press releases, caucus memberships, legislative activity, and events may lead you to trusted messengers in the district. You can also learn more about your member of Congress on their Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram pages. And govtrack.us is a great site. I only just looked at that recently, but I'll put that link in the chat as well. On govtrack.us, it provides information on members of Congress, including their committees, their enacted legislation, the bills they've sponsored, and their voting record. And in the future, this is in the future when you happen to be visiting the office of a member of Congress, take a close look at the photos and the mementos to learn what the member of Congress cares about. Just look around the office. All right, let's hear from you. What is one thing you know about your member of Congress's political party, background, and activities in the district? And I'll ask you to put that in the chat, and I'll go first. So my representative here in San Diego is very interested in moving spent nuclear fuel rods from the San Onofre nuclear power station up the street from the coast to a safer storage site. He talks about this all the time. So local community leaders with guidance or expertise on safe storage of spent nuclear fuel are people that my representative is likely to listen to. So those kind of people are going to be trusted messengers. All right, put in the chat someone who you think, one thing that you know about your member of Congress's political party, their background, activities in the district, things that might point you to a trusted messenger. As a reminder, our high-level goal here is for a trusted messenger to write in their letters to their member of Congress how climate change is impacting the district, their organization, their industry, jobs, the economy, and their community. So with that in mind, here are some more ideas for how to start your research project into trusted messengers. Members of Congress are always interested in creating jobs and economic activity in their district. The district is their jurisdiction, and the member of Congress will be judged on the health of the district's economy in the next election. So look on Wikipedia to find the largest local employers and primary industries in the district. Members of Congress will very likely listen to representatives from these organizations and industries. Then search your local newspaper's website to find how climate change is impacting your area. You can also review the local impacts resource on CCL Community, and I'll put that link in the chat. There's all kinds of good stuff on Community at that link. Add what you find to the letter template we'll see on the next slide. CCL provided an editable template letter in the April 2024 action sheet, and the template is also available on Community, and I'll put the link to that template letter in the chat. So let's talk about how to work with your trusted messenger to customize the editable template letter and how to deliver it to Congress. All right, so you've done all your research and you've found the trusted messengers in your district, and now you're connected to a trusted messenger. You've set up a meeting. So let's talk about how to work with them. Number one, you're going to want to work with them to fill in the blanks in the template letter. and then be sure to describe the impact of climate change on the district, on the trusted messenger's organization, and on the community. So work with the trusted messenger to add that to the letter. Next, work with the trusted messenger to select one of the policies in CCL's policy agenda to the letter. So those are, of course, carbon pricing and forestry and electrification, permitting reform. So pick one of those. If the trusted messenger would prefer to write a personal support letter, work with them to ensure the letter describes how climate change is impacted and will further impact their city and organization, their desire for the U.S. Congress to prioritize more policy to address climate change, and which of the policies in CCL's policy agenda they support. All right, once you've worked with the trusted messenger and the letter is done, ask the trusted messenger to print, if possible, on their letterhead. You're welcome to help draft the letter, but the letter should be signed only by the trusted messenger. Once the trusted messenger has printed the letter on letterhead and signed it, work with the CCL liaison to plan to deliver the letter to Congress. The best time to deliver the letter is during a lobby meeting so that you or someone in your team can hand over the letter personally, highlight the described climate impacts in the letter, and discuss the importance of the trusted messenger's policy support. For example, you might say something like, here's a letter from your friend Jan Thomas, who's on a city council member in your district. The letter describes climate impacts that have lowered crop yields and raised prices in the district and policies to address climate change that Jan Thomas, your friend, would like you to enact. Be sure to emphasize climate impacts and the credentials of the trusted messenger when you deliver the letter. All right, so now you're familiar with trusted messengers in major industries and their oversized influence on their members of Congress. So to help reinforce this relationship, we're going to hear from a former CCL staff member who some of you probably know. In this video from Donna Dew, CCL's former Senior Director of Programs, Don highlights an example of doing the research, identifying a key industry in the district that is important to the member of Congress, and leveraging the industry's role as a trusted messenger to deliver a message to Congress. This video is only about a minute and a half.
Mean for you? What does it mean for your district? Oh, a lot of districts across the United States have very specific industries that hold up those districts. Let's think about out in California, like the San Joaquin Valley and all of the nut groves out there, specifically the almond trees. Those growers are a great opportunity to engage. That's an industry that we can look to. Another option is in Florida. We think about the citrus growers, the orange growers. There are several districts where citrus production is the main agricultural product. And so when you have that type of single industry that really sustains a single district, you've got a lot of power there. You've got a lot of opportunity in engaging those folks, engaging those business owners, and bringing them to the table so they can share their stories with their member of Congress. And that's what we can do in terms of moving these members so that they see the impact, so they are hearing it, not just from us, but from the folks that are actually on the ground, who are the main drivers, main economic drivers of those districts. The more you can bring in those type of voices, the stronger your voice will be, and the more trusted a voice you will be in Congress, and specifically to your member of Congress.
All right, well, my takeaway from that video is that trusted messengers have power to move members of Congress. And I really liked what Don had to say about industry. He talked about the nut groves in California, and I don't think he was talking about me being a nut grove because I live in California. I think he was talking about up in the San Joaquin Valley where they grow a lot of nuts, and how industry, representatives from industry have a lot of clout on their members of Congress. All right, what do you think? Did we achieve our learning goals? So we started off by reviewing the Grasstops lever of political will and defined a special type of community leader called a trusted messenger. Then we explained how to identify local community leaders that are trusted by their members of Congress. And then we went over the steps of working with a trusted messenger to customize our editable template letter and how to deliver the letter in a lobby meeting. If you want to log the training yourself in the action tracker, you can click chapter development and then click training, and then select the name of the training in the pull-down menu. All right, well, thank you for being here and learning all about bringing support letters, policy support letters from trusted messengers to lobby meetings in the congressional office. Here's my email address. If you ever want to get hold of me, todd@citizensclimate.org. You probably know we have a Grasstops engagement action team that's very active, and here's the link on the slide. And if you have any questions, you can, after this training, you can post your questions in the site-wide forum on Community. And that you go to site-wide forums, you click connect, and then site-wide forums, and you'll see that one of the options is Grasstops. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.